Good evening and welcome to the February 4th, 2015 Town Board meeting. I'll officially call the meeting to order and I'll ask everyone to rise for the pledge. Tonight we have Michael from Troop 9 who is here working on his last badge for his Eagle, who's going to lead us in the pledge. And Michael, if you would please, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, as I mentioned, is with Troop 9, working on his last badge, citizenship in the community. The thing that impressed me about him was he has got a great voice that would serve well on radio and TV. So maybe you have a calling. You've got that great voice. So, okay, the meeting is officially called to order. I'd ask for a roll call, please, of the board members present.
Cole. Here. LaFountain.
Present.
Metzler. Here. Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Here. Okay, we'll move into communications and announcements, and I'll recognize our town clerk first.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The town and county tax collection deadline for first installment and for full payment is due February 10th. Payments can be made in person at the town hall from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Feel free to use our night drop box that is located at the town hall entranceway on the west side of the building. If you plan to mail in your payment, we do honor the U.S. postmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, everyone. Just a few announcements. First, a safety message from the Fire Marshal's office. We are asking residents to adopt a fire hydrant this winter to aid firefighters servicing our community. If you have a hydrant on or adjacent to your property, please keep it clear of snow for the safety of your entire neighborhood. If firefighters have to take valuable time to clear a hydrant of snow, they will be delayed getting water onto a fire. And please do your part to assist these men and women who do so much to protect our residents. Thank you again in advance. Also, if your road does look anything like mine, the snow is inching further away from the side of the road and into the road. So please be mindful of winter parking rules in Penfield. No parking on roads in the town of Penfield between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. through April 15th. This will ensure that our plows and service vehicles can get through the town quickly and safely. Thank you. And lastly, as chairman of the Public Safety Committee, one of my initiatives, something I've been passionate about, is a Public Safety Summit, and I'm glad to be hosting one next Thursday, the 12th. This is a discussion between the town and various local emergency services organizations that represent the town. I would like to thank the board for their continued support and encouragement in this endeavor, and Tom, Ted, and Jeff David for their efforts in coordinating the summit. As the summit comes and goes, I will keep the board up to date and report back on findings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Messler.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. After consultation with the town board, our fabulous Penfield Recreation Department continues to improve on their programming. Over the course of the last year, we've seen significant additions to our recreation department. I have one to share with you. Coming up this year, Penfield Recreation will be offering a full week camp for February school break for children ages 6 to 12. Each session will be filled with a variety of activities, including arts and crafts, special events, and physical and recreational activities that will all be held at the Penfield Community Center. This break camp runs Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day. You may register for the entire week or for individual days based on your family's needs by calling 340-8655 or online at penfieldrec.org. And I'd like to thank Chris Bilo, who continues to work with the town board to make Penfield Recreation bigger and better than it's ever been. My last announcement is, speaking of recreation and speaking of sports, Penfield Girls Lacrosse will be having a fundraiser brunch this Sunday, February 8th at Don's Original Pub and Restaurant. It's $10 per person from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. It's all you can eat. French toast, an omelet bar, home fries, pancakes, and sausage. So please come out and support Penfield Girls Lacrosse on Sunday morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments this evening. The first is that for the last 5 years, I have delivered a State of the Town address, and a lot of hard work goes into that by many of our staff members. And in the interest of making sure that we still report out to our community, this year I have prepared an annual report. And I'm not going to give that formally. That is now located on our website. So if you go to penfield.org and you click on quick links, it is there. Also, if you go to the Supervisor's office under Documents, it's there as well. Our communications director, as well as Penfield TV staff, have done a nice job of linking a lot of different materials to that. And it's a way to at least streamline the effort. So you're getting the same information, but certainly in a little bit more condensed package. So that is available for everyone to get at any time. There's also a section there that if you have a question for the supervisor about any aspect of the annual report, you can send that and it'll get right to my desk. And then I will follow up accordingly and address those questions that do come in. So I would encourage you to go to penfield.org and click on 2015 annual report. Second item is the Penfield Town offices will be closed on Monday, the 16th, in observance of President's Day. However, the Penfield Library will maintain their normal hours for that day. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mark your calendars for the Penfield Trails Committee Hikers Jamboree on Saturday, February 14th at 10 a.m. at the Penfield Town Hall Auditorium. The public is invited to come and learn about all the hiking programs in the greater Rochester area, and the event is free. All groups in the Rochester area that will host hike programs in 2015 are invited to participate to promote their program. Groups wishing to participate should call Penfield Recreation at 340-8655, option 6. Also, Penfield Recreation's Deer program has another unique and exciting fundraiser coming up on Thursday, February 12th. It is a Masterpiece Gala, which includes an art swap, an art auction, and a mystery dinner. This event kicks off at 6 p.m. with the art exhibit, and appetizers follow by dinner at 7 p.m. Then at 8 p.m. there will be a live auction where the Masterpiece-inspired game comes to life. For details and information on how to participate, please see the new Penfield Winter-Spring brochure, page 35, which contains a complete write-up of this very unique opportunity, or visit penfieldrec.org. And also real quickly, Mr. Supervisor, I would like to personally thank you and thank Recreation Director Chris Bilo for moving forward with our initiative to offer the recreation camps during this February break or winter recess. I know we talked about that as a town board a couple months ago. It was a priority for the town board. Not everybody goes away on vacations during winter break. A lot of people stay home. A lot of parents end up having to take a significant time off from work because school is out. This provides them an opportunity to have their child in a fun, safe atmosphere, a learning environment, you could say an educational environment, and also experience recreation at the finest level. So you took this initiative and you ran with it, and we have it proposed for this coming February. So on behalf of this board, I'd like to thank you and Chris Bilo for your efforts in making this happen for this coming February break. Again, the recreation program, I believe, and I think I can speak for the town board today, is far better and in a greater position today than it's ever been at any time, and we're very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. I have two announcements. My next community chat will be Tuesday, February 17th, 5:30 to 7, new book area at the Penfield Library. If you want to come out and talk about any issues before the town or have any concerns you want to bring to me and I can bring back to the rest of the board. And the other announcement is the Penfield Players. They're announced their winter stage reading of A Shot in the Dark. It'll be Saturday, February 21st at 2 p.m. in the Penfield Community Center. This is a provocative comedy with pompous aristocrats, hot French lovers, jealous wives, and murder. Admission is free, but donations are accepted. For more information, please go to www.penfieldplayers.org.
Now, if that isn't a tease for a good program from the Penfield Players, I don't know what is. So,
Right.
All right, great, thank you. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, that's public participation. There are a couple of ways you can do that. If you're here in the auditorium, you can address the board on any matter here at the podium. If you're at home, you can call in at 340-8771. Or you can log on at penfield.org, and we can get a message right up on the printer that is right next to us. So with that, Amy, is anyone signed up to speak?
I don't have any
Okay.
sign-ups, but I think
Yep.
I have somebody waving, Tim Murphy.
Okay. Tim Murphy? Yep. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Good evening, Town Board. Tim Murphy, 48 Corral Drive. The reason I'm here on this nasty winter evening is, like the rest of us, we love our community and we really care. Also, I have a compelling need to finish what I start. So I've had three things that I've been talking about pretty regularly, and I'm here to just follow up on all three of those things. First, honoring Irene Gossin is something we've been talking about for quite a while. And we said we might have something by the end of January. And just pinging you to see, has Bruce Zareski, has anything evolved at this point?
Bruce was actually in today. Bruce is working on things, so I would hope that he had it. I mean, that was the tentative date, was the end of the month. He isn't quite ready with that yet, but assured me that that's one of the top priorities that he has and he's working on as we speak. So I told him that we'll continue to stay close in touch so we can get that information out.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Yep, absolutely.
And just to anticipate next steps, when Mr. Zareski is ready, I'm assuming we'll convene a small meeting to discuss.
We'll probably do it right at the work session, Tim.
So it'd be agenda item and. Okay,
Exactly right.
Okay, great, thank
Because
you.
it'll be a broader community, obviously a broader community discussion.
Thank you.
Yep.
The second thing I wanted to talk about is, the issue with Baker Commodities. The explanation and remediation. Has anything happened since we talked 2 weeks ago?
Nothing further. Did speak briefly with the director of DEC this afternoon on a couple of matters. So that is not something that has fallen off on anybody's radar screen. And so I would hope that over the next several weeks we would have a little bit more information to report out, both from the DEC standpoint and from the town standpoint.
Okay, thank you. The only thing I ask is, let's not wait for them to call us. If we can continue to reach out to them.
Yep, and that was one of the phone calls. He and I have been chasing each other for the last handful of days, and we did connect late this afternoon.
Great.
And Tim, I would like to just mention there, I'd like to just thank the supervisor again, because I think from day one, at least in mid-July, it's been Supervisor LaFountain and this town board that has been the lead agency as far as asking or bringing DEC and other organizations to the table. So it's been Mr. Supervisor's role there as, the chief executive officer of this town to keep the momentum and keep the finger to the pulse, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a positive spin, Rob. Thank you.
Well, you can look at it any way you want, Tim, but that's the spin. That's the only spin there is. I mean, you can continue to think that we're dragging our feet, and I will continue to differ with you on that.
I didn't say that, Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, I would echo too, Tim, that certainly Councilman Quinn, I give credit to what he's saying because of his experience in the state government, and certainly when we see a state agency, we're not used to Albany working all that quickly. Your friends in Albany don't work that quickly. But thankfully, we have a supervisor here who keeps his foot on the gas pedal and is making sure, as I think was evident at the public information meeting that was convened and arranged by Supervisor LaFountain regarding Baker Commodities, that DEC knows that we are certainly keeping an eye on what their activity is and progressing through. So I would commend Supervisor LaFountain as well, and I certainly always thank Councilman Quinn for his experience in Albany, and he knows the ins and outs of these agencies. He knows who to call. He knows who the point people are, and that's invaluable to this board.
So it must be his people, not my people. I'm not affiliated with anyone there. But I do want to ask.
I'm talking party
That makes two
affiliation.
of us.
Talking party
Thankfully.
affiliation, but I can see why you want to distance yourself.
Well, the only question I'll come back to you is how many of you people have actually gone up into the neighborhood and met with those people?
it seems like I chat with a lot of them on some regular basis, but I happen to be the guy that's full-time here, and so it would be logical for me to have regular interface with those folks.
And they have a very capable leader in Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed certainly has professed himself to be the community organizer there, so we certainly defer to his collective report that he frequently gives us, which is very helpful.
Great. Third topic, due diligence on outsourcing. This topic has come up before. I've had 34 years in corporate America, so I know what due diligence looks like. Snow plowing and grass mowing in particular. Mr. LaFountain, Tony, you invited me to the work session last week. I went. I was the only one there. I listened. I didn't have the benefit of the spreadsheet or the data. I know I only pinged you yesterday or asked you yesterday if we could get that. I walked away with a lot of questions in my mind, only because, I go through these exercises all the time. So hopefully you value the questions. Some were big ones, like has the town identified what services are the ones that are core competencies where we want to spend our money and time? Big questions. Other questions that I didn't hear asked, really there was only conversation about price between what it costs for town employees to do it versus a contract firm. I didn't hear anything about the time. I didn't hear anything really about quality. There were a few mentions, and I have to admit Scott and the folks at Rochester Lawn Care are outstanding. And I love that they're in the community. I love that they use propane. There's a lot of positive things about it. But again, if you step way back and say, what's the business case? If we decide to outsource services and it doesn't work out, we have no leverage. So questions like, what is the current repurchase price of all the assets for mowing? I have no idea. Is it $500,000? Is it $1 million? What's the current book value? Again, I didn't hear any of those things talked about. Related to that, and I go back last year, I remember exactly where I was, walking out of the Penfield Fitness Center. Bob Beaton was walking in, who happens to be the director of finance. I said, Bob, what's going on here? Can you sit down and talk to me about the outsourcing? He looked at me and said, Tim, I was never involved. It was between the supervisor and the director of the DPW. I have nothing to say. Put his hand down and walked away. And that's not like Bob. I mean, normally he would say, come to my office, we'll talk about it, I'll give you some more information, but that just stuck with me. The director of finance for our town, who's the second highest paid employee, I went and looked in see-through New York. He got a raise last year, so he must be doing his job well. He's been around forever. He wasn't involved in the exercise for outsourcing, a financial justification. I'd appreciate a comment on that.
Yeah, I think it was pretty simple, Tim. We took a look at the cost that it took to provide the service by town employees. We took a look at bidding out some or all of that. This board, I think you heard at the public hearing, we elected to do a piece of it to try that. It was pretty straightforward math as we looked at that as to what it cost for our labor and our equipment, our maintenance, and our fuel, and based on the number of acres that we were cutting. And we had a roll-up of $175,000 and change. So I'm not going to have that exact number. It was $175,000 and change. I think it was actually $175,093 if I'm correct, Tim. But when we went out for bid, the bid prices to do everything that the town did was $121,000. So basic math. Said that's $52,000 worth of savings that we looked at. This board, as this board routinely does on a regular basis, said that we have an interest in trying this. We have concerns, especially around those fields for athletics, and we want to make sure that we're providing that same level of service. So we stripped out, the grass cutting for that, and when all was said and done for 2014, That portion worked out to be approximately $20,000 that we spent that was contracted. And the remaining piece for the town to do was about $121,000. So right from get-go, we saved approximately $52,000 delta from where we were the year before to where we ended up last year. And we took into account, in fact, very conservatively, I made sure that our Director of Public Works looked at that very conservatively. I know one of your questions to me was, did you go through a reasonable process of electing to maintain a machine versus trade a machine in? And certainly the discussion that we had is that we knew we needed to provide some maintenance to that machine, but to provide $9,000 worth of maintenance to that machine versus going out and purchasing, again, depending upon the model that we were looking at, anywhere from about $82,000 to $101,000. I thought I was willing to maintain that for another year to see what kind of results that we ended up having. So that was a choice that upon review, that aspect of it, upon review with Director of Public Works and Mr. Beeden and myself, as we were taking a look at not only the general fund budget and the highway fund budget, but also our reserves, we elected to keep that piece of equipment one more year and maintain it, rather than spending the dollars and only to turn around and surplusing that piece of equipment altogether. So that was part of the discussion, part of the logic, and so that's how we got to where we got to for 2014.
Thank you for that. And again, Mr. Supervisor, I don't have the benefit of looking at the numbers, but again, I thought I listened closely and took some notes, and I heard the two representatives of DPW do the math in front of all of us, saying 173 minus 150 is a 23K savings. Kind of heard something different. What is the real number? You don't have to answer it now, but that's part of the reason why we're here, is to talk.
I think the real number, I think if you take a look at the tape, the real number is the same tonight as it was last Wednesday night, Tim, because 100,000 and 20,000 is 120,000 as compared to the 173. So that looks to me to be approximately $51,000 with the roll-up in the delta difference, and I think that's what we talked about at that meeting. And no different with this issue as any other issue. My door is always open, and I'd welcome the opportunity to sit down and have the conversation.
And I'm sorry, I intended to do that, but I was out of town for the last few days, but I did feel obligated to follow up. Mm-hmm. So again, I just have a general discomfort. I know not a lot of people pay attention to these type of topics. But there was another thing that happened last year. There was a letter written by a former employee of the town, which I have not confirmed, but multiple sources shared. And without going into the detail, it talks about some things happening within the DPW. And again, the basis of the concern is do we have control of these services in this organization? I know you've worked very hard to consolidate cost and consolidate the organization, but what's the net result? Again, if we're looking to consolidate services, lawn cutting, for example, Penfield signature, it was even in the DNC, is at our parks. I'll say our parks and recreation programs go hand in hand. There's a reason why people come to and stay in our community. I've even talked to some of the folks that we used to liaison with, and they can't believe where we were to where we've come to, which is, a conversation probably about investment, and the times have changed. There isn't the member item money any longer out there for building a Dolomite Lodge or remodeling Harris Whalen, but still keeping an eye on the things that we built, the soccer fields behind here, I'd venture to say that the number of young people that play soccer, boys and girls, is probably bigger than Little League at this point. Again, the quality of the fields. Again, that's a decision that we, the community, want to be part of. Again, so when we start outsourcing, once we start auctioning equipment, which I heard talked about.
We auction equipment every year.
Understand.
I mean, every year we auction equipment. We do that because we tend to get a better price at the auction than in a trade-in. So if we have a vehicle, a sedan that we're replacing with a sedan, we'll typically ask a quote for what we could get that for a trade-in. Now, if we're going off state bid, typically you don't do trade-ins off in state bid. It's a straight purchase, and then we auction that off. But we take a look anytime that we trade any equipment where we get the best value, auction or trade-in value.
And I believe, Mr. Supervisor, I believe the hope is that we maintain it, and it has significant value. But just a fine point on one of the questions, again, kind of pointing towards due diligence. What is our total investment in capital assets for mowing the grass? Do you have just some idea? Is it $500,000, more, less?
Well, I mean, if you take a look at so if you're asking the question, what is the value of all the equipment that we have today? We know what the cost is, to mow, for a year. We have that broken down. But if you're asking all the pieces of equipment, what's that current value, et cetera, I don't have that off the top of my head. I certainly can get that piece. But I want to go back to something that you had talked about, which is the condition of the fields. And so are you telling me that the condition of the fields today are not the quality that they were last year or 2 years or 5 years ago?
No, I couldn't say that, Mr. Supervisor. I frequent Rothfuss and Greenwood the most. I know weather conditions are a big, huge thing. People always complain about clumping. I mean, especially the soccer, the young people. But that's always been the case.
Right.
So honestly, I don't think my observation says I can't see a difference.
Okay.
Well,
and so because the only reason I ask is that if there was, that's certainly something I want to take a look and deal with because we do field rotation. As you can imagine, we try to rest a field a year so that we can make sure that there's no damage or anything like that, or repair damage and let it get a good catch of grass and things like that. But all of the fields, all of the sports fields in 2014 were mowed by town employees.
With the exception of Greenwood Park.
No. All fields in 2014 season was mowed by the town of Penfield and not a contractor.
I thought you heard the experiment the other night.
The experiment is proposed for 2015.
Okay. Thank you. Again, if you're looking at quality metric, and I'm not the best person to assess that, but I'm sure there's variability. And again, most of it undoubtedly is the weather and events. But I'd like to take you back to what you were talking about, Mr. Supervisor. Just, you don't know the sum value of the capital assets that we have to
right off the top of my head, no. That's,
and I guess
I hope you forgive me for that.
And I absolutely do.
I can get that, but right off the top of my head, I don't have that.
But you see where I'm going in terms of due diligence? I mean, those are the kinds of things you look at. What's the replacement value? What's the depreciation left on these kind of machines?
And that was all figured.
That was all looked at, Tim.
That was all figured in
Absolutely.
as part of that, Tim. That was part of the matrix.
And that's looked at in Public Works land, that's looked at with every piece of equipment, no matter what, whether it's a sewer vac truck, whether it's a snow plow. That's part of our duty, and certainly when the state comes in or when we are audited, that's part of an audit, as I'm sure you know. Assets, equipment, and depreciation, and whether you are certainly keeping your assets up to par from a financial standpoint. But as far as to say, a group of vehicles or a group of equipment, how much are they worth? You can start there, and that certainly was part of our conversation. Last Wednesday was certainly not the first time we've talked about this issue as a board. Or internally with the Department of Public Works. And, but when you're looking at a piece of equipment, there's, as you say, there's more variables than how much is it worth, how many years do we have on it? Is it a piece of equipment that we maintain in-house? Are our mechanics able to work on this piece of equipment, or do we have to send it elsewhere? Things like that. Lots of different questions come into play. I've learned a lot in my role as chair of Public Works Committee regarding equipment, and it's much more detailed than that. I wish it was that simple. It's not.
You're right. It never is. But again, the question, can we see the math? Can we see the business case? Can we see the spreadsheet that was shared?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what I'm really getting at, Tony, is the due diligence.
And as I've said, Tim, I don't know how many times we've had conversations like this, but my door is always open. I mean,
And I believe, Tony, but one of the things I've cheerleaded you on, and I gave you the book. I gave you my copy of the book of Citizenville,
Right.
where it says, put the data out there, other people can help you make it information. Again, I heard a lot of good conversation tonight about cost, about hiring back a former employee who loved doing it.
so
Not hiring back, sorry, seasonal.
Thank you. So let's just make sure that, we've got all the facts and the data. So that person did retire. That person elected to come back and at a seasonal rate. And that's the only cost to the town is that seasonal rate. No different than if we hired a person that was standing on the corner in the Four Corners. The beauty, from my perspective, of hiring back someone like that, one, they want to be here. Two, they treat the equipment like their own, and three, they know the fields and they know the areas that they're cutting. To me, that's a win-win situation. They want to be here. They're looking at getting some additional spending money for hobbies and things like that, and come October, they're gone. They're off hunting. They're in Florida. They're doing whatever. And so the beauty of that is that you get that experience, at a fraction of the cost, but you get a very high quality.
And I believe, Mr. Supervisor, so all I'm going to do is just cheerlead you. If you follow that as an alternative, trying to get staff augmentation, and again, I heard comments about benefits and the like, but you keep the assets, therefore you keep the leverage. Seasonal work with seasonal hire. That's an alternative, and I didn't hear that talk through. Maybe there was other conversation, and maybe it is on the spreadsheet or the business case as it developed. Didn't see it. Again, we're talking about due diligence in this process.
Right.
I don't know if it's right or wrong, Mr. Supervisor. I hope it's right. Our business, we use ARC for outsourcing for light assembly. We feel great about it. We think it's the right thing to do. But there was a lot that went into that. And we continue to watch our costs.
And you have to. And you have to. I mean, there's no difference with a private corporation or the town of Penfield. And I'm guessing that your company, you don't hire full-time people with benefits to cut your grass. I'm guessing you have that outsourced.
Absolutely, we do.
Right. And so essentially, we did the same thing. We said that, we've got this, and the board has, and to their credit, the board has stepped into this very carefully. I was proposing that to have everything cut by the contractor and save a pretty significant amount of money to the town and avoid having to purchase new equipment and depreciate the equipment and all those types of things. Everything was up and in with the contractor. The board, to their credit, as they talked through that, said, you know what, we're willing to step into this process, make sure that the quality is right, make sure that the savings are there, and take a look and assess how that operates. And so that's what we've been doing. So this 2015 will be a second year that we'll be working with contractors, and there will be a portion of that that'll still be cut and maintained by the town of Penfield.
Good explanation, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you. But and I don't mean to turn this into a debate at all, but there's a big difference. We make plastic laboratory equipment. The town of Penfield, government, provides services to the community. And I see a big distinction there. And again, all I'm asking, the big picture question, have identified what services are core. Is there something that we can point to that says doing this is core and doing this is not? I mean, that's the kind of exercise, I think, at least in corporate America, that we go through and say, what are we good at? And what can we give away?
And for spending almost 30 years in corporate America myself, I'm there with you. I had that opportunity to weigh that on a regular basis. I had an opportunity to lead outsourcing on a number of different businesses, and a number of different businesses we elected to keep in-house. Based on our, the business case review of that. So I understand what you're saying. As we take a look, we've got some skilled people that have been with this community for many years that we're paying a very high salary. Having them cut grass, I don't think is something that's in the best interest of our taxpayers. Having them work on roads and public utilities related items, drainage, sewers, stormwater management, things like that. That's where their skills, their knowledge is best put to use. And no disrespect to anyone, but from a grass mowing, a grass cutting standpoint, we shouldn't be paying salaries of $25 to $30 an hour with benefits, and those benefits ranging as high as 71% cost of benefits. So I mean, there's something that I need to take a look at, because since I've been in office, I haven't had one resident come in and say, please raise my taxes.
I'm with you with that, and I hope we never hear that.
Well, there's going to come a point. You can't get to a point that you're able to absorb everything that comes down from other levels of government. I mean, I can't absorb what comes down from the federal government from affordable health care. I can't do that year on year on year without any increase. There's going to come a point I'm going to have to, if I'm still in this position, I'm going to have to look at this board, or I'm going to have to look at our residents and say, okay, for the last 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, we've been able to hold the line, but the costs are coming down quicker than we can absorb them. And there's going to come a point that we're going to have to either say we're not going to provide this service at all, or we're going to need some level of tax increase to make it happen. And my goal, my fiduciary responsibility, as I see it, as elected by the populace of this community, is to do everything I can to manage costs, to keep our services pretty much the way they have been, and to try to minimize some of that disruption. But doing the same thing year in and year out the same way is going to allow us to keep those costs at that level. So we're going to have to continue to look at and see what makes the most and the best sense.
You're right, Mr. Supervisor. Push-down economics is not good. We know unfunded things that the town clerk has to do, like the dog licensing, is not fair pool.
Right.
But just, again, I'm just trying to make the conversation whole. I mean, you talked about $21 an hour plus burden, a significant burden. Mm-hmm. But in the resolution tonight, there's a $55 an hour cost, unburdened. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm looking just for the math. Mm-hmm. Trying to make sense of it, saying, okay, I know their time on job is different than the 37 half hours or 40 hours a week that our employees work on.
Right.
And you mentioned some big projects, but one of my questions was, have we evaluated the projects that we put the people that might have been cutting the grass, redeployed? Again, goes in the business case. It'd say, hey, I'd rather have them doing the rehab work in front of the library,
right,
as opposed to cutting the grass. Right. I mean, I hope that was the case.
Absolutely was the case. Yeah, it absolutely was the case. And I think I ran down through the list last Wednesday when you were there with the different people that some have elected to retire, and a number of them that we have put in other positions, either part-time or full-time, because their skills and their knowledge was something that provided more support to this community than just cutting grass.
I think you can't put a number on valuing your employees. And certainly, we could say we have the best mowing crew in the world, but are they being stifled when they have other skills, they're skilled laborers, or can they learn something else within the town? We take a risk. We take a risk that someone is going to learn a skill and take it elsewhere. either privately or another municipality, but we value our employees. To take an employee who spends the majority of his time cutting grass and now they are running a sewer vac truck, that's valuing your employee. And that's really hard to put a number on.
But you're right. And again, just looking to make sure that the conversation sees the light of day, and it really manifests itself in the numbers, how we do the math, how you show the business case. And again, was looking for that justification. Are there any headcount at risk this year as you look at outsourcing initiatives?
The headcount that we currently have is a stable workforce for 2015. Obviously, what I can't control is retirements, but the discussion that we have had specifically in DPW and in most departments is that we are down to what I would consider pretty close to our critical mass. And so as we lose folks, we're probably at a point to have to replace a one-for-one. We have made some significant reductions over the last 5 to 7 years. As folks have retired, we've combined some jobs and have not hired back a one-for-one. But we're really at a point in most all of our areas, unless we elect to do something, some significantly different, that we are at what I would call our critical mass today.
So just to comment, Tony, what I wouldn't want to happen as people leave the organization and we don't fill them, all of a sudden it becomes part of the business case, and it makes the conversation way too easy to say, oh, we're going to outsource that. I'd hate to see that happen, and again, that's why it goes back to the math.
Right. It does, but I will say I wouldn't be doing my job if as we lose people, or even take a look, and I've mentioned this before and I'll state it again, this board expects, and I would be disappointed if they didn't, expects for me to come back to them on a regular basis to report out how things are operating, because I'm the guy that's here 7.5 hours a day, one would say, or more. I'm the full-time person that is here to work with all of our departments to make sure that we're managing our costs, and the board is continually asking for what can we do better, different, and I have an obligation to say, okay, board, if you want to do this, this is what the potential cost impact is, and if you want to do that, this is what it is. So that's a continual discussion that the board does have about where are we going, how are we meeting our numbers and our projections month on month, quarter on quarter, and annually. And so that's just part of that ongoing fiduciary responsibility I have as the supervisor.
Thank you. So I'm going to wrap up here, but just wanted to encourage you, and I made the point, maybe some intermunicipal sharing would be in order. I heard some conversation about, doing work at MCC, and it seems like it happens every year where our road crew goes and paves Monroe Community College, and I get that that's a profit center generating revenue, but Webster cuts grass. Walworth cuts grass.
Webster doesn't cut grass.
They just outsourced.
Prior to Penfield. So.
But others cut grass.
Just so you understand, I mean, let's make sure we, if we're going to compare facts to facts, let's make sure we have the facts. They did it a year prior to Penfield contracting, so they've been contracted since the 2013 season. So they're on their
taxes. They have a financial organization. They have human resources. Again, their shared services model is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
And again, I mean, I know the governor's put money out there. I know it's a tough decision to make, and it's a lot of hard work to get there. But again, you see it whether it be in the school districts or in the towns. There's a lot of overlap of services.
Don't disagree with that, Tim. Yeah, don't disagree with that at all.
So, Tony, one last point, and just because I live at the end of the road, Greenwood Park gets heavily used early in the season by the Little Tots Lacrosse, and I love going down there to watch it. But if you go down there and you realize what's happening, people pull off the road because there's not enough parking. It's a very small parking lot. They pull off the road, cross the sidewalk, and park in the trees all the time. And especially right at the end of Thoroughbred, there's a big, huge shoulder. And I've seen cars go forward to go back to come flying out of there. So I know, neighbors in the past asked to put the no parking signs up on the east side of the road, but something needs to be done, for the park itself proper. I don't know what the solution is. I'm sure it'll cost money, but, again, kind of had a firsthand account of that the last few years and wanted to leave that with you.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your time.
We'll take a look at that. Thanks. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to address the board on any matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue on with our agenda. First, are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Resolution 15T-64, setting a public hearing to consider adoption of the local law number 1 of 2015, Penfield Child Safety Act, be added to the agenda.
And Mr. Supervisor, I second Mr. Quinn's motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to add resolution number 164, and that would be to setting a public hearing to consider local law number 1, known as Penfield Child Safety Act. Okay. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we have approval of the minutes of January 7th, 2015. Would entertain a motion of approval.
I move that the minutes of January 7th be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I would ask for a roll call. First off, any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote of those minutes.
Call.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Has the board or clerk received any petitions since our last meeting? Seeing none, move on to resolution by function, and we'll start with law and finance, please.
Authorization to attend New York State Town Clerks Association Conference.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas New York State Town Clerks Association is dedicated to promoting the professional development of town clerks across the state. Whereas New York State Town Clerks Association 33rd Annual Conference has been scheduled in Rochester, New York on April 26th through April 29th of this year. Whereas the conference provides vital information from state agency representatives and valuable training sessions for professional development for all town clerks. Now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk, Amy M. Steckloff, and deputy clerk, Lisa Grosser, are hereby authorized to attend the 2015 New York State Clerks Association Conference. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Discussion on this resolution? I think consistently the question has always been asked that if, Amy, if you're out and your deputy is out, is the office adequately covered during that period of time?
Yes, not only will I have my clerk 3 there while I'm away and while the deputy is away, but also the tax receiver and her assistant will be there. And being that this particular conference is in the town, in Rochester, New York, in Monroe County, we will be able to come back to the office if need be, and our phones are always on.
Okay, great, thank you. Seeing no other discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Appointments to Ethics Board.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board of the town of Penfield, and whereas Town of Penfield Local Law Number 1 of 1970 provides for the establishment of an ethics board to perform duties as defined in the local law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the following are appointed to the Ethics Board with a term expiring December 31st, 2015. Tracy Easterly, John Hanreddy, and Steve Pello. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorize the town comptroller to attend the PERMA board meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town comptroller is on the board of directors for the Workers' Compensation Carrier Public Employees Risk Management Association. Whereas the PERMA board meeting will be held on February 26th and 27th in Latham, New York, and will be fully paid for mileage, and hotel expenses by PERMA. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Comptroller attend the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing for the issuance of a special permit to allow the construction of a 528-square-foot garage addition at 2041 Penfield Road.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board for the issuance of a special permit pursuant to Article 3-3-49-C of the Code to allow construction of a 528-square-foot office garage addition to the building at 2041 Penfield Road. Whereas the subject application is determined and classified as an unlisted action pursuant to seeker. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield will hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on March 4th, 2015 at 7 p.m. on said date to consider the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? See no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing to consider revisions to the development application fee schedule.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield will hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on March 4th, 2015 at 7 p.m. to consider revisions to the development application fee schedule as more particularly described in Schedule A attached to the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, Board? See no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization to assess the charges for the securing of an unsafe structure to the 2016 property tax bill.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas on December 21st, 1982, the Town Board of the Town of Penfield adopted Article 12-12-21 of the zoning ordinance entitled Unsafe Structures. Whereas Article 12-12-21 of the zoning ordinance is to provide for safety, protection of health and general welfare of persons and property in the Town of Penfield. Whereas on November 2nd, 2014, the property located at 1750 Penfield Road was determined to be an unsafe structure by the Penfield Fire Marshal and posted not to be occupied. Whereas exterior doors and windows in the vacated residence of subject property were found to be unsecure. Whereas the Penfield Fire Marshal ordered and arranged for the necessary and proper emergency securing of such structure. Whereas the owner of 1750 Penfield Road, after sufficient and reasonable notice, has failed to reimburse the town for said cost of securing the structure. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield authorizes that said cost of securing the structure be to the 2016 property tax bill of this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Awarding the 2015 contract for weekly and biweekly for expanded turf mowing.
Moved.
Second.
Sealed bids were sought and requested in a manner prescribed by law to furnish the Department of Public Works with a service contract that would provide the town of Penfield with expanded weekly and biweekly turf mowing for the 2015 season. On January 14, 2015, at 11 a.m. local time, the following sealed bids were received, opened, and read publicly from the following list of suppliers: Ted Hosmer Enterprises, Garden Grove, RM Landscape, Rochester Lawn Care, Curb Solutions, Cardinal Lawn and Landscape, Brockman Tree and Lawn, and Flint Landscape and Snow. The bid received from Rochester Lawn Care, 1592 Qualtrough Road, for the following services: expanded weekly and biweekly turf mowing at a rate of $835 per pass and an hourly rate of $55 per hour, was the lowest bid received, which meets or exceeds all of the town's bid specifications. Now therefore be it resolved that a contract is awarded to Rochester Lawn Care, Penfield, New York, for expanded weekly and biweekly turf mowing. The town's specifications, this resolution, and the bid submitted by Rochester Lawn Care shall constitute the contract to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney.
Thank you. Discussion?
Just a couple quick comments, Mr. Supervisor. I know we just heard a lengthy discussion on this project, but I just want to make sure that a couple points are clear. And one of the points that I wanted to make tonight was that a large portion of the properties that we're talking about, or I should say just about all the properties that we're talking about for grass cutting, where we have a private contractor cut the grass, are properties that are pretty much vacant or really not used by the town. Would that be a correct statement?
It is those areas that are pieces and parts, with the exception of Greenwood Park, that either require biweekly or what I'll call twice-a-year seasonal mowing.
Okay. So at the discussion last week at the work session where we were discussing this, it became pretty clear to me that we were talking about properties that really aren't used by people. And yes, I do agree, and I will acknowledge Greenwood Park is one property where we are experimenting with having a contractor cut that property. But other properties that we are having a contractor cut are properties that are typically used for easement for retention ponds, or as I said earlier, really not used by people on a regular basis. Properties like Pump Station at 250, the town pump station, or Smith Cemetery on Gloria Drive, or LaSalle Landing down at Empire Boulevard near the bay, or a piece of property, a vacant piece of property off Maple Hill Farm Road, or other properties such as the Victory Garden off of 5 Mile Line Road. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're not talking about mowing lawns, or not mowing lawns, but mowing properties in all of town-owned facilities or town-owned properties, but only in a few of them that the private contractor will be doing. The Greenwood Park, I think, is worth experimenting with. I'm very familiar with that park, as the speaker said, he's familiar with the park also. So I have the faith that if we go ahead and have a private contractor mow that park, that between the county recreation director, Chris Bylo's monitoring of the quality of work, between the highway department's monitoring of the quality work, and quite honestly, between Penfield Youth Lacrosse, who does use that park on a regular basis for practice, for leagues, for camps, and scrimmages. I personally know the president of Penfield Youth Lacrosse, and I know just about all of the coaches of Penfield Youth Lacrosse, and trust me, if there's a problem with those fields, I will know about it within a short period of time. So I think we have some really good safeguards in place to ensure that the mowing quality is of standards that's expected, and I have faith that it will. Also, I think a point that was made last week at the work session, during the public meeting at the work session, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Supervisor, that with the contracting out of the mowing services for these lands, these easements, and these unused properties, per se, we are not expecting to lay off any town employees. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Further discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, just briefly, I want to commend your efforts for continuing to move forward with initiatives that are in keeping with our approach to save money and find more cost-effective ways to do the town's business. Last year, you did present us with a proposal that would have contracted out more than I think was ultimately approved last year. But as you indicated before, it is our goal to walk before we run. So this year's proposal is sort of an extension on last year's proposal. And we also learned from the residents, and in one case in particular, we did receive a petition late in the season last year regarding the mowing in the Pennicott Circle neighborhood. And we were able to rectify their concerns and have our town workforce go out and continue to do biweekly mow there. And this year, I have followed up with the residents, and they are very pleased that we are going to continue biweekly mow with the contractor. They were also pleased with the contractor when, towards the end of the season, the contractor was brought in. So they appreciate the fact that we are trying to find new and creative ways to save some town money, but also their concern was the frequency of the mow, and they are okay moving forward with the proposal this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank Councilman Quinn for his efforts, particularly with regard to Pennicott, now that you bring that up. I know I learned that you spoke as recently as this week to update a neighbor there as to what had transpired, that they were certainly seemed to be satisfied, not only with the outcome, but also with you being the point person to reach out. And so I appreciate that, and certainly have heard that you are certainly in that neighborhood and talking to people, and I think that's a valuable role you're playing with respect to the Pennicott area, so thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
I certainly support this. You know, it's been here on the town board a long time, and things have changed, and we have to work with less. We can't have it the way it was, and this is showing how times have changed. We're working on the outsourcing, and we've seen that it actually saves money, and we're not laying anyone off, so our people are intact, but we're saving money by doing something differently. So I commend the supervisor for looking for creative ways for us to save money and work with the departments.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization to extend snow and ice agreement with New York State Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Be it resolved, the supervisor is authorized to execute a one-year extension to the 2014-2015 snow and ice agreement between the town of Penfield and the New York State Department of Transportation for the 2016 to 2017 snow and ice season. Not anything we want to think about yet, but 2016 and 17 snow and ice season is upon us soon.
It will be. Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Approval to attend the 40th Annual Continuing Educational Conference.
So moved.
Second.
Whereas the Finger Lakes Building Officials Association is holding its 38th Annual Continuing Educational Conference for Code Enforcement Officers at the RIT Inn and Conference Center in Rochester on May 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. And whereas this program will be certified by the New York State Department of State Office of Fire Prevention and Control as meeting 24 of 24 hours of in-service training requirements for code enforcement officials. Now therefore be it resolved that Thomas Alexander, Jeffrey David, Andy Sevegas, Harold Morehouse, and Thomas Tett attend the annual Continuing Educational Conference March 16th through 19th at the RIT Inn and Conference Center, Rochester, New York. There will be no lodging or mileage reimbursement. Registration fees of $1,950 shall be allocated from departmental conference budget line. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion?
No.
Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign recreation contracts.
So moved.
Second.
This authorizes the town supervisor to sign 14 recreation contracts, and they're sort of exciting. They're all summer-related. It starts with Independence Day and goes into the Cool Jazz Series and Kids Fest, so it's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Thank
More
you.
so than the 2016-2017 snow and ice season,
I was going to
Exactly.
say there is a summer season before that, right?
for a couple months.
Seeing no additional valuable comments other than snow and ice, I would ask for a roll call vote on that resolution, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, that takes us to old business. Any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, is there any new business? And yes, we have a resolution that was introduced earlier. I'd ask our clerk to please read that.
Setting a public hearing to consider adoption of the local law number 1 of 2015, Penfield Child Safety Act.
So moved.
I second that.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, it is with great humility that I submit the following resolution and proposed local law. Whereas the state of New York, through the Sex Offender Registration Act, has increased public awareness of convicted sex offenders by requiring them to become registered with authorities and making such information available to the public. Whereas in order to further safeguard and protect the health, safety, and well-being of the residents of the town of Penfield, and in particular to protect the children of the town from access by convicted sex offenders who may be present in the town, the Penfield Town Board wishes to consider adopting Local Law Number 1 of 2015 to further restrict and regulate the movement of convicted sex offenders consistent with state law, particularly in the areas of school grounds, playgrounds, parks, town facilities, and daycare centers. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield shall hold a public hearing at the Town Hall in the Town of Penfield on the 4th day of March 2015 at 7 p.m. on said date to consider said Local Law Number 1 of 2015, Penfield Child Safety Act.
Thank you. Any discussion on this resolution?
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, like you and thousands of Penfield residents, I was outraged that a convicted sex offender from Seattle, Washington was discovered to be residing in Penfield directly across the street from Veterans Memorial Park. By outward appearance, there is a failure at the top of our criminal justice system where a sexual predator can be arrested, held awaiting extradition, released in a community 3,000 miles away, and reside next to a park. This failure put Penfield residents, in particular children, at great risk. While school districts are powerless to act, we are not. While federal and state authorities are hesitant to act, we are not. As parents and grandparents ourselves, and as the elected representatives of this great community, it is our duty to act. If Penfield must lead on this, then we will. Over the last 7 days, I've worked closely with the town attorney to draft the local law I am introducing this evening. It is entitled the Penfield Child Safety Act and would establish child safety zones throughout Penfield. It would prohibit convicted sex offenders from residing within 2,000 feet of school grounds, playgrounds, parks, town facilities, or daycare facilities. It would impose stiff penalties on convicted sex offenders who attempt to evade the law. And most importantly, it would reassure our residents that their safety and their children's safety is our number one priority. It was my intent to present the strongest town law possible, one that is consistent with state law and one that would remain in effect for years to come. I believe the Child Safety Act before you tonight does both. I ask for your continued support in moving this proposal forward to a public hearing on March 4th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Other
Mr.
comments?
Quinn. Additional comments from me. Well said, Councilman Quinn, and I do appreciate, as we all do, your efforts to, we all have spent a lot of time over the past week or so on this, and I'll make my comments brief. As an attorney who has practiced criminal law, as a public official, and above all as a mother, I remain outraged that a sex offender of the highest level, a level 3, legally determined to be a sexual predator, was permitted to leave the state of Washington while awaiting trial for yet another sex crime, come to Rochester, New York, without any restrictions imposed by Washington, leaving our community vulnerable and our children at risk. A fundamental legal principle is that a defendant be held or bail required if there is a risk of flight. If what this community has experienced does not amount to this sexual predator being a flight risk, I don't know what is. There's no defense to this failure by the system. There's no defense to the decision by the Washington court. As I told my daughter, this story is not over. I will do whatever I can in my authority as a town board member to protect her, her brother, and all children within our community. I thank Supervisor LaFountain, Councilman Quinn, and my fellow board members for promptly responding to this concern. And I thank the residents who have contacted me expressing their outrage and support since this story first broke. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
The expansion on what the state law is a positive measure. It goes to the parks, 2,000 feet from parks and different town facilities and playgrounds. And it's important to add not just the the difference between the school district, but the town facilities as well. And this is one thing we can get a handle on, and we are pursuing. And I thank Councilman Quinn for really taking the ball on this, and the supervisor and our town attorney's staff put a lot of effort in putting this together in a short period of time, but it's well done.
Yeah, I would like to echo those comments too with the rest of the town board. Thank Councilman Quinn for his leadership in this. Also thank the supervisor and his leadership in moving this initiative forward so that we can have a public hearing on this and get the ball rolling. I agree with my colleagues on the Penfield Town Board that a level 3 sex offender who is accused of another heinous crime and allowed to leave the state of Washington without restriction clearly represents a total failure of our criminal justice system. As a father of 2 young children, it is reprehensible that officials responsible for protecting the public from these predators have allowed this sex offender back in our community. This is absolutely inexcusable. Thank you.
I think I will just, before I ask for a roll call vote, I would just like to add that certainly for those of you that know me, I am a person that is pushing for less government and not more government. However, I also believe that one of the major roles of government is the protection of our residents, and public safety is very high on that list. I'd mentioned earlier in the meeting that I spent 29 plus years in corporate America, and that was all within the public safety field, security, fire, and industrial safety. And when this particular situation did occur in our town, it just sent off so many flags, certainly as a parent and a grandparent, certainly as the supervisor of this community. But most importantly, that potential impact to our youngest residents, those residents that potentially are the most vulnerable to this individual and a level 3 sex offender that shows that opportunity to repeat. And I think a lot of hard work went in a very short time. And this is a very important piece of legislation that will continue to help serve this community and protect our residents. So I want to thank certainly Rob Quinn, who really was the spearhead of this as part of our public safety and public safety liaison, our town attorney, and certainly the board members that provided a constant feed during the day, in the evening. I saw some emails back and forth at some pretty interesting hours just to make sure that we got this right, to put it to the community in a public hearing here coming up on March 4th. So with that, board, any additional comments? And seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote setting a public hearing to put into place the 2015 Local Law Number 1 Penfield Child Safety Act.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you, Board. Thank you again, Mr. Quinn. I would also encourage our residents that on March 4th would welcome any and all comments from our residents, our schools, our service organizations, our faith community, anyone to support this particular legislation here in the town of Penfield. Seeing no new business to come before the board, this is our second opportunity for public participation. I would welcome anyone an opportunity to address the board on any matter. Okay, seeing none, and there being no further business before the board this evening, the February 4th, 2015 Town Board meeting is officially adjourned at 8:16 p.m. Thank you for all that came tonight. Special thank you again to Michael from Troop 9, who is here working on his last badge prior to his Eagle Court of Honor. Michael, we wish you all the best, and certainly keep us in mind. We'd love to have an invitation to that Court of Honor. And thank you to Penfield TV. Have a great evening.